Yo, what up guys? Havoc here and welcome to episode 1 of Best Ever Beginner's Guide for Destiny 2 New Light. If you have never played Destiny 2 before and have no idea where to start, this video is made for you. If you're a returning player who quit before Forsaken, you might also find some helpful tidbits here, but this is more catered to brand new players, so be warned if it seems a little redundant. You may want to check out my next episode when it comes out, however, as it might be a little bit more relevant if you're coming back. If you have been playing over the last year and are still here watching, then you either can't get enough of my seductive voice, or you're one of my 3 friends that I paid to watch this video. If you're somehow neither one of those, then ignore that last part. Anyways, this is going to be part 1 of a new series I am making for New Light players. And the reason I decided to make this series is because, let's be real, Bungie dropped the ball on the new player experience. Now hold up. Destiny is an awesome game, but Bungie, how are we gonna get all these free-to-play players invested in Destiny 2 if they can't even figure out what the hell they're supposed to do? I have already had countless friends come to me asking, Havoc, where do I go first? Havoc, I don't know what to do. Havoc, help me. Okay. Well, to all of you asking those questions right now, here you go. Oh, and by the way, I should clarify a few things before we get into this guide. There will be spoilers for year 1 stuff. I will try to avoid anything unnecessary, but let's be honest here. The game's been out for 2 years, and you're looking for help. There's gonna be spoilers. Oh, and sorry, last few things. Number 1, this is all going to be from the perspective of PC, not console. Unfortunately, I cannot for the life of me figure out how to use a controller for anything other than Netflix, so sorry if I don't have any specific tips for you there. I will, however, try to give you some general pointers for what I know about controller where I can. Number 2, this will also be from the perspective of New Light. That's right, everything I am teaching you about is 100% free, no expansions needed. This first video, however, will be on my main account to show you all of the abilities that you can acquire, so I will specify the one thing that is locked on all characters without Forsaken, but other than that, you are good to go. Number 3, you should only worry about things in the order of this guide. Don't worry if something is confusing right now, you don't need to know about it yet. I put a lot of effort to make sure to explain things as necessary, so hopefully it won't overwhelm you, but you won't miss out on anything. Don't worry, you're in good hands. So, in this first episode, we're going to go over the 3 different classes to choose from. That is a lot to go over in one video, and we aren't even getting to the first mission. So I have timestamped these here for you if you only need to see specific parts. I will also leave them in the description below. See, told you I got you covered. So, let's get started. We are going to start all the way back at the beginning. No, not that far. Ah, there we go. Character creation. Time to play God, or Traveler, or whatever. If you notice, there are 3 empty slots available for characters. There are also 3 different classes available to choose from. Titan, Hunter, and Warlock. 1 for each slot. Interesting. So yeah, doesn't matter which you choose, but I will give you a quick tip here. You will want to eventually create all 3 if you plan on fully diving into the game. Also, creating 2 or 3 of the same character does nothing to benefit you, so don't waste your time. Other than the class you choose, looks don't matter, so feel free to choose however you like here. One important note though, the only way that you can change how your character looks is by deleting them and creating a new one. So just get it right the first time. So on to the classes. For our first example, we're going to start with the smash everything first, ask questions later class, Titan. These brain-dead animals are for players that love cheating in PvP and lapping up the salty tears of their victims. Can you guess I'm not a big fan of one-eyed mask bottom tree striker Titans? Oh, you have no idea what I'm talking about yet? You will soon, my friend. You will soon. But I digress. Here's a quick rundown of how abilities work in Destiny 2. On your character screen, up at the top left, you will notice 3 elemental symbols, blue for arc, orange for solar, and purple for void, aka electricity, fire, and dark energy or something. Oh, and for the love of the Traveler, don't call it darkness. You might piss off a few Guardians. These are the main pillars for what we call supers in Destiny. If you've ever played a MOBA or games like Overwatch or Apex Legends, they are often referred to as ultimates. Basically a really cool ability that takes a long time to charge, but is super powerful once used. You can switch back and forth between either of these subclasses as much as you like. Just note that switching subclasses or trees resets the timer on your abilities. So if you're planning on switching, make sure you don't need those abilities for at least a few more minutes while they recharge. We are not going to go over every single ability in every single tree because you don't really need to know all of that right now. I'm just going to show you the class abilities, jumps, grenades, and then a little bit on how each tree is different. And then I'll go over my recommendations for PvE and PvP, depending on which you choose to dump more time into. So starting with the Arc class, aka Striker Titan. Yep, that one I was just talking about. If you click on this subclass, you're going to notice one big diamond on the left, connected by a couple smaller trees. Every class and subclass has these, but the options available in each tree will vary depending on which of those classes or subclasses you choose. If none of this is making sense yet, just bear with me for a few more minutes and you'll understand what I'm talking about soon. The two smaller diamonds on the leftmost side of the screen are what we call class abilities. The Titan class ability is a shield that does one of two things. The top choice drops a towering barricade on the ground that blocks damage for a short period of time and damages enemies that walk through it. You also cannot shoot through it, but you can walk through it yourself without taking damage. This is primarily used in PvP, great for capturing points and holding off lanes. The other choice is called Rally Barricade. This barricade can be crouched behind and used as cover while still shooting over the top. It will also greatly increase your reload speed while behind it, so this is best used in PvE against waves of enemies or bosses since it won't stop another Guardian from popping your head off while you reload your gun. Both of these classes' abilities are present on all three subclasses. Now, let's check out the three diamonds below the big one. These are going to be your jumps. Titans have a jump called Lift. It's kinda like a propulsion system that floats you upward. The default lift is called High Lift. As you can see here, when you hit jump a second time, it launches you upward a bit, gaining some extra height. The second choice is Strafe Lift. This doesn't give you quite the same amount of height as the first jump, but it does let you move a bit more freely in your jump to correct your step before landing. This is great if you're trying to land on a small ledge or you happen to miss your jump. The last choice is called Catapult Lift. This lift is like if you put all the energy of the first two lifts into a short burst instant rocket jump. The name says it all. It will catapult you upward very fast, but at the cost of time you can float in the air. It will not last very long, so be prepared to land fairly quickly. I would say in the beginning it is great to start with either High Lift or Strafe Lift, but later in the game you will almost solely use Catapult Lift. Just try them all out and pick one that sticks with you for now. Grenades. These will sometimes change depending on the subclass or class of your character. The one on the left is called Flashbang Grenade, which will do exactly that, blind your enemies for a few seconds. The one that I would say you should go with for now is the middle choice called Pulse Grenade. This grenade drops a pulsing electrical field that does damage every second to anything standing inside of it. It's a nicely balanced choice for PvE and PvP until you get the hang of something like lightning grenades for PvP. Now, for the three trees on the right. Ignore the actual names of these trees. We here in the Destiny community go for a much more complicated approach. Top tree, middle tree, and bottom tree. I hope that wasn't too difficult for you because you're going to be hearing that a lot going forward. Top tree, middle tree, bottom tree. Top, middle, bottom. Good, I think you're getting it. One thing to remember, this video is for new light players. Unless you have Forsaken, all of the middle tree subclasses will be unavailable. I would skip over these, but considering some of you may have picked up Forsaken or are just curious what the hell kind of super that guy just used against you, I'll talk about them a little bit. Top Tree Striker. This tree is all about pissing people off in PvP and getting those grenades back super fast. Two actually. This is one of the few ways in the game to get more than one grenade, and it synergizes so well with the one-hit kills in PvP with Shoulder Charge. Normally, Titans just like to punch everything, but if you run for a short period of time, you'll notice a blur around the edge of your screen. This means that if you run up to an enemy and quickly melee them, it will not only one-shot them in PvP, but will recharge your grenade. Nice. The super tied to this tree is called Fists of Havoc. No, not me Havoc. These cause too much havoc for even moi. This Havoc lets you roam around the battlefield bashing the heads of your enemies into pulp. See, I told you this class is great for those of you that like smashing in faces. Bottom tree. The nightmare of all nightmares. This is the quintessential PvP Titan subclass. In fact, it is so good, I'm telling you, don't even touch anything else in PvP right now. Really. Basically, you can't one-hit melee kill like Top Tree, but when you get a super that can do it 10 times in a row, who needs neutral game when you can just left-click your way to victory? I am not joking when I say you can literally left-click enemies with your super, kill them in one shot, while also regenerating your health back and extending your super so long that you can actually kill the same player 2 or even 3 times over if you can chain kills fast enough while running across the map back and forth like some sort of Michael Phelps on acid. Yeah, just trust me on this one. There's a reason people hate this subclass, and this is after it just recently got nerfed. Okay, are we calm now? Good. So, there are 2 types of supers in Destiny 2. Roaming supers, like the one I just described, where they drain your super bar slowly as you use them, and single-use supers that put all of your power into one single shot that drains the bar instantly. As far as the middle tree, this is the latter. You basically turn into a human missile flying across the field until you hit the ground. When you crash land, you do massive AoE damage to anything nearby, and after that, your super ends. Really fun, but not super practical if you don't know how to use it properly, as it leaves you open to attacks. Okay, moving on to Solar. Sunbreaker. All class abilities and jumps are going to be the same across subclasses, so let's look at grenades. Incendiary is your standard throw and it explodes type of grenade. This one just happens to have a burn effect. Nothing special here. Thermite is pretty cool. It creates a wall of fire where it lands directly forward and pulses similar to Pulse Grenade. Fusion grenades are your typical sticky grenades with a pretty generous aim assist. One thing to note is that grenades do not one-hit kill in PvP, so don't expect to insta-kill anyone with them. The Sunbreaker is a roaming super that summons flaming hammers that you can throw at your enemies from a distance. Honestly, this would have to be my favorite Titan subclass for creativity. Pretty cool, not gonna lie. With Top Tree, similar to Top Tree Striker, you get a shoulder charge melee that weakens enemies. This actually puts a 30% debuff on enemies for a few seconds, great for melting high level enemies or bosses, and yes, it's still one-shots in PvP, so no need to worry about that. This is the most important part. Other than that, solar abilities increase movement speed and reload for a short period of time, and hammers leave burning magma on the ground when thrown. Bottom tree, not as good right now, but you heal off your solar ability kills. You can also throw a hammer at your feet and then stand in it to recharge abilities and throw hammers faster. It's alright. Middle tree is a little different. It is still a roaming super, but it's a melee hammer that you can slam onto the ground, releasing waves of fire that home in on enemies, or you can spin it around while you chase after them. Honestly, really fun to use. You can also throw a smaller hammer with your melee ability that can be picked up again instead of waiting for it to recharge, while also healing you and increasing your damage with each throw. Like I said, blast to use. For PvE and PvP, I would recommend Top Tree for now. Bottom Tree might have its place in PvE later, but for now, stick with Top. Okay, for the final Titan subclass, Sentinel. Again, same jumps and class abilities, but for grenades, Magnetic is a sticky grenade, much like Fusion. Void Wall throws a wall of void flames, much like the Thermite grenade, except this time it's horizontal to your position when throwing. The Suppressor grenade is a very unique grenade, however, and possibly the best PvP ability in the game. If you are hit with a Suppressor grenade, you cannot use abilities for a short time. By the way, that short time is 10 seconds. Not so short when you're on the receiving end of it. That means no second jump, no class ability, no grenade, and most importantly, no super. Oh, were you in a super when you got hit? Too bad. Hope you weren't banking on using that for another 5 minutes. Yep, suppressor grenades will take away your super. This is the only subclass in any class, by the way, that can use this. So if you see a Sentinel Titan on the other team, keep your eyes open. Anyways, let's move on to the super. This subclass is pretty unique in that each tree actually plays much differently. We're going to actually start with the bottom tree this time. Why? Well, if you stop questioning my madness, you might understand in a minute. So again, shoulder charge. Great. In case you didn't notice, every Titan subclass has one of these. This and the super are the real selling points here. With bottom tree, you get a roaming super with a Captain America-like shield that can block incoming damage. You can also use your grenade button to throw this thing and it bounces around and tracks enemies just like in the movies. I swear, there's gotta be some sort of copyright infringement here, Bungie. Anyways, if you notice, you actually get 2 throws with this one. It's pretty nice for blocking damage, but still taking out enemies from a distance. It also seems to recharge pretty quickly, fun to use in PvP. Now, for top tree, the real kicker here is that you actually have 2 supers to choose from. Yep, first time you've seen that, huh? Much like bottom tree, you can press your super for a standard, Captain America knockoff, but this time you don't get the bonus for 2 shield throws. So why would you want to use this one, you ask? Because if you hold down your super for about a second, voila, a massive single-use bubble shield. Not only does the shield protect you and your allies from damage, it actually gives you an overshield while inside, and a buff called Weapons of Light, which increases your damage by 35% for any allies walking through it. Can you say boss melter? It's also really funny in PvP when a bunch of other players just start running into your bubble and they can't do any damage to you. It's a great time. The middle tree super this time around lets you roam around with a massive shield that blocks all incoming damage and allows teammates to shoot through it. I'm not exactly sure what the damage increase is, but it's not substantial enough to care. And with Weapons of Light on Bubble Titans, there's really not many situations this is going to be helpful with right now. So for now, bottom tree for PvP, top tree for PvE. Middle has its place, but also has us wanting just a little bit more, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's the Titan for you guys. So my personal recommendations for PvE: top tree Sunbreaker for ad clear with thermite grenades and rally barricade, top tree Sentinel for boss encounters with void wall grenades and rally barricade, and then if you have Forsaken, middle tree Striker for burst AoE damage with pulse grenade and rally barricade. My PvP recommendations are bottom tree Striker for easy kills by spamming left click to chase enemies with pulse grenade and towering barricade. Bottom tree Sentinel for free long range kills with suppressor grenade and towering barricade. And if you have Forsaken, middle tree Sunbreaker for super counters with thermite grenade and towering barricade. This has been a much longer video than I expected, but hey, I'm here for you, so we aren't going to worry about that. Fortunately, it's going to be a lot less explaining the further we get as you start to understand concepts and patterns, so let's just keep on moving. Hunters, the only correct class to choose. I guess you can pick the other two. Let's get into it. Starting with Arc again, let's take a look at our new class abilities since we switched over. Hunters have an ability called Dodge. This lets us get out of sticky situations fairly quickly and gives us a quick little bonus depending on which one we choose. The top class ability is called Marksman's Dodge. This makes you kind of do like a little spin to get into cover while also reloading your currently equipped weapon. This is really great for weapons that take a long time to reload, or single shot rocket launchers, for example, where you can shoot off 2 rockets back to back very quickly. Great for those times where you're out of ammo and low on health while an enemy is barreling right at you. Just dodge behind cover, take them out with your full magazine, boom. Bottom choice is a little bit more niche. It gives you a tumble ability, so you are harder to hit in PvP, for example, but instead of reloading your weapon, it reloads your melee when nearby enemies. This will pair great with some subclasses, but I'll explain that when we get there. Actually, there's a lot of situations where Gambler's Dodge is technically better, but as a new player, it's better to focus on something simple like dodge to reload or dodge to get out of danger. Gambler's Dodge is a bit more advanced, so let's just practice with the top one for now. For the jumps, Hunters have more of a standard jump than your Titan lift would be. If you are using high jump, you get a second high jump. Ha! Pretty standard stuff. Strafe jump is pretty cool. You can be moving in any direction, and rather than keeping that momentum when you jump again, you can actually switch to any direction you like. This is really useful in PvP when you get the hang of the game, but for now, I want you to just solely focus on this last one, and that is triple jump. I don't care how much you might like your high jump or strafe jump, triple jump is just better. And just like Frank's Red Hot Sauce, I want you to put that shit on everything. There you go. Jumps solved. Moving on to grenades. Skip grenades will split when they hit the ground, carrying momentum and chasing enemies around corners, great for PvP. Flex grenades are standard sticky grenades, and when an arc bolt grenade lands, it does a quick scan of the immediate area and sends tracking grenades at enemies in the vicinity. Most of the time, just stick with arc bolt here. Arc Strider Super. It's pretty much the same for all three trees. You pull out a massive arc staff and you can do all kinds of cool spinny moves while chasing down enemies. Decent roaming ad clear super to mow down low to mid-level tier mobs, also decent in PvP. For top tree, the big selling point is the melee. Combination blow along with the bottom dodge ability, remember how I said there was going to be some niche opportunities with this one, will allow you to stack increased melee damage for a short time, as long as you keep getting melee ability kills. Notice I said ability. Standard melee doesn't count here, so you must have your cooldown available. The reason the bottom dodge helps is because after you kill an enemy, run up to another one, dodge, get your melee cooldown back, and start punching. You can do this up to 3 times to keep the reset timer going. By times 3, you will be doing massive damage. It's really fun to play around with. You can be extremely powerful, and it's great for PvE. Bottom tree, usually known for its PvP application, takes less damage while dodging, sprinting recharges your dodge, and if you're hurt, your grenade and melee charge faster. Pretty simple here, nothing too fancy, just all about cooldowns. As for the middle tree, for my Forsaken owners, it has its uses in both PvP and PvE, but the main selling point are the melee uppercut, which shoots out a wave of electricity if used while sliding, and the deflect ability on the super. You can actually deflect projectiles, including other supers, back at enemies. It can be very trolly. Moving on to Solar Gunslinger. Have you ever wanted to bring out your 1800s Wild Wild West sharpshooting skills into a video game? Look no further. This class is all about that yeehaw spirit. So here we go. Same class abilities and jumps again. Do I even have to say it? Triple jump. Use it. For grenades, we already talked about Incendiary with the Titan, standard frag grenade. Swarm grenades leave floating drones after they hit the ground that seek nearby enemies fairly aggressively, albeit a little bit slow. And trip mine, my favorite, similar to claymores in Call of Duty, for example, they can be set as traps. They attach to surfaces with a laser emitting from them, and if broken, they explode doing massive damage. Still not a one-shot kill, but enough to do a good amount of damage in PvP. Great for setting traps or watching your own back. So, moving forward, Gunslinger is all about throwing knives. Interesting how it's not called Knife Slinger. Ha. Sorry, bad joke. Anyways, top tree, you can throw an exploding knife for your melee, and precision kills with any weapon, usually meaning headshots, grant you increased reload speed. The super here pulls out a roaming golden gun with 6 shots that can one-shot guardians in PvP and most mid to low level adds in PvE. The kicker here is that for every kill you get, that bullet is refunded. So if you get 4 kills back to back with every single shot, you still have 6 shots to play with. Usually this tree is best used in PvP. Bottom tree doesn't give you an exploding knife, but if you get a precision kill with it, you get your knife back. For the super, you actually only get 3 shots this time, but they do take into effect critical hit damage, such as headshots, whereas the top tree does not. Since it doesn't matter if you get a headshot in PvP, this is best used in PvE content. For the middle tree, this is the first OP super on the list for hunters. Instead of pulling out a golden gun, you get an instant single-use volley of knives that explode, called Blade Barrage. This thing just destroys in PvP, killing any super in the game in a single hit. As far as PvE use, it is also incredibly strong at single target damage and AoE clear. The throwing knives are just the icing on the cake. You can throw a fan of 3 knives that burn enemies on hit, and if killed quickly, you will acquire a buff called Playing with Fire. It can stack up to 3 times, which recharge your knives faster and faster each time. At times 3, your knives come back almost instantly. It is actually possible to clear some content in the game without using a gun with this trick. Lots of fun if you have the Forsaken expansion for this one. Finally, the Void subclass and my personal favorite for Hunter, Night Stalker. Again, class abilities and jumps are the same, so let's look at grenades. Vortex throws a small, you guessed it, vortex on the ground that damages enemies that walk through it. Spike Grenade is similar to the Trip Mine Grenade, but emits a constant beam of light that damages enemies rather than a Trip Mine effect. Void Wall, we've already talked about with the Titan class, but basically drops a horizontal wall of fire that pulses damage. Top Tree, my personal recommendation for anyone wanting a good feel for what the Hunter class can do. All of the Night Stalker trees have a smoke bomb instead of fists or knives. Top Tree sets a trap, and it can disorient enemies that walk through it. It's a great combination with the next ability on the list, Vanishing Step. Whenever you use your dodge ability, you go invisible. Great for escaping danger when low on health. If you're using it with the top class ability, you will also reload your weapon, making this an incredible way to break aggro on enemies and clean up kills. For the super, you shoot a single-use bow shot wherever you're aiming, and that tethers any and all enemies together, suppressing them and increasing damage dealt while sharing the damage between all of them. An absolute beast of a super in PvE for ad clear or boss damage. Bottom Tree is all about guerrilla tactics and high damage. Instead of vanishing when you dodge, you go full-on ninja mode and throw a smoke bomb at your feet to make you and your allies go invisible at the same time. This has incredible synergy with the Vortex Grenade because your smoke recharges with grenade damage, which lasts twice as long in this tree by the way, and the more allies that you make go invisible, the faster your grenade comes back. Not to mention the super ability that can shoot multiple arrows at enemies, doing exponentially more damage to enemies already tethered by previous shots. This is great for both PvE and PvP, considering tethers one-shot kill in PvP. Middle Tree is a bit different. Instead of gaining a bow that tethers enemies, you pull out 2 deadly blades running around the map invisible and gaining wall hacks on enemies. Absolutely deadly in PvP when used properly. On top of this, your smoke grenade slows enemies and does damage over time. And if you get a precision kill while crouched, you turn invisible. On top of all of this, getting the invisible buff grants you a short time where meleeing a target weakens them, increasing damage taken. This is a very fun, sometimes considered OP subclass for PvP, and has some niche uses in PvE. So, if you're looking for some great PvE subclasses to start with, here's my recommendations. Bottom Tree Gunslinger for boss damage with incendiary grenades and marksman's dodge. Top Tree Night Stalker for ad clear with vortex grenades and marksman's dodge. Bottom Tree Night Stalker for utility and damage, also with vortex grenades and marksman's dodge. And if you have Forsaken, Middle Tree Gunslinger for quick AoE burst damage with incendiary grenades and marksman's dodge. For PvP, Top Tree Gunslinger if you can make quick accurate shots with swarm grenades and marksman's dodge. Bottom Tree Night Stalker for disrupting enemy supers with vortex grenades and marksman's dodge. And if you have Forsaken, either Middle Tree Gunslinger, again, for guaranteed kills and super shutdowns with swarm grenade and marksman's dodge. or middle tree Night Stalker for stealthy kills with spike grenades and marksman's dodge. Whew, how you feeling so far? Good? All right, let's finish this off strong. Warlocks, the class with the worst jump in the game. Don't at me. Oh my god, do their abilities make up for it. So let's get this show on the road. Going to our trusty starter here, Arc subclass. Warlocks have a class ability called Rift. When you or your allies stand in the top rift, you heal slowly, gaining an overshield after full health. Stand in the bottom rift and you increase your damage output by a small amount. Personally, I want you to be using top rift for both PvE and PvP for right now until you get the hang of it. The increased damage isn't going to do a whole lot for you right now, and the healing will save your life in some cases. Just remember, there is a slight delay when using your rift where you can't move before you start healing, so don't just plop it down out in the open where you're gonna die. Looking at the jumps, Warlocks are a bit interesting. Rather than having a second jump, they conserve momentum whichever direction they are moving. So, if you quickly double tap jump, you will burst upward. If you tap the second jump just before you reach your peak, you will kind of float there for a second and then start falling. If you jump as you are just starting to fall, you will float down, and strangely enough, if you are already falling fairly quickly, tapping the button will stop your fall, pushing you forward. It's tough to master, and most players consider it the worst jump because of the lack of vertical movement. From the left, we have Strafe Glide. Similar to our friendly neighborhood Titan, it helps you adjust your float down so you can land on smaller ledges easier, or make turns quickly in the direction you need to move. Burst Glide gives you a bit of propulsion in the direction that you're moving, my personal favorite for getting around quicker, and Balance Glide, which gives you a mix of both. Preferably, you should be using Burst or Strafe, whichever you prefer. Balance just doesn't give you enough of either to really make it worth your while. Grenades are going to start repeating a lot more this time around. You have your Arc Bolt for the scan, which chains lightning to enemies, Pulse Grenade, which pulses the ground like the Arc Titan, and Storm Grenade, which focuses an area with burst damage. Most of the time, you're just going to want to use Arc Bolt for now, and I'll show you why. Top Tree Stormcaller. All about those grenades we just talked about, and with Arc Web, it will infinite chain enemies in close proximity. So toss that on an Arc Bolt grenade and watch your enemies scatter in fear. And once you get your super, you turn into Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars and use the Force, light, to melt down your enemies while roaming the field. Seriously, how has Disney not gotten mad about this yet? The main bonus to this tree when it comes to super is Blink. You can blink every few seconds to close the gap or confuse your enemies, and it's pretty nice in sticky situations. The selling point to bottom tree is the Arc Soul. You still have your roaming tickle fingers, but this time around, instead of Blink, your standard rift gives you a little arc buddy that follows you around like a mini turret. It's a small amount of damage, but sometimes it's just enough to finish someone off in PvP or even PvE. For middle tree, you blast a massive Kamehameha freaking laser beam at your enemies. Dragon Ball? Now come on, Bungie. Anyways, the one cool thing about this super is that it's the only super in the game that you can turn off at any point and save energy as it's draining. It's not quite a roaming super, but it does drain quickly instead of single use, so yeah. Now, before I give my thoughts, I want to move on to Solar. Good old Dawnblade. Oh, let's get this super quickly because, oh my lordy, same riffs, same jumps, seen all the grenades before in other subclasses. Solar Grenade is Vortex, Firebolt is Arc Bolt, Fusion is blah blah blah, but Dawnblade. Possibly the greatest subclass in the game. So good that it's been massively nerfed, and it's still incredible. The only subclass that can make a grown boss cry. Alright, so we're gonna do this right. I don't even want you to worry about top tree. Sure, it's there, but what we want to look at is bottom and middle. Starting with bottom, in the most simplest way of saying this is basically a better version of top tree in every way. Hence why we skipped it. This is the PvP subclass tree for Warlocks. Activate Dawnblade and throw swords that not only lock onto your enemies, but refill your super just like the bottom tree striker. Not only that, but you can zip around the map with your enhanced movement speed like some sort of flying bat shooting sword missiles. Absolute insanity. So, moving on to the PvE God subclass, Middle Tree Dawnblade, aka, you must own Forsaken to use this. Thrust your sword into the ground rather than flying around with it, and you create a massive aura around you that not only increases you and your allies' damage, but heals you at absolutely insane speeds, while also giving you an overshield. Do you even need anything else? You can just stand in this practically impervious to damage and kill just about anything you want. So why not just add the ability to turn your grenade into a healing grenade that also gives you and your team heals when they step in it, and when you melee an enemy, they take more damage. And when you and your allies use your abilities to their benefit, they freaking recharge. So basically, you have a healing buff, a damage buff, and it all recharges when your allies use your heals or stand in your rift. Oh, and we weren't going to talk about this here, but if you acquire a specific piece of gear called Lunafaction Boots, you gain increased reload speed on all your weapons when inside the rift. Yeah, I'm done. Moving on. Void. Same old rift, same old jump. Wait a minute. That is not the same jump. Still have strafe glide on the left, still have burst glide, but it's on the right now. What's this middle one? Blink. That's right. Teleportation. With the exception of Emperor Palpatine's Force Lightning from our top tree Stormcaller, this is the only subclass that can teleport instead of having a second jump. This ability is definitely for PvP. I can't think of any situation where this is helpful in PvE at all. It can be incredibly disorienting and difficult to get used to, but Blink is an absolute powerhouse against non-suspecting victims. If you want to spend the time getting used to it, be my guest, but it's going to take a lot of practice getting down. Back to our grenades. We got Vortex once again, Axion Bolt, which works kind of similar to Arc Bolt, and Scatter Grenade, which breaks apart and homes in on enemies on impact. The main takeaway from Top Tree is the Nova Bomb Super, or more specifically, Slova Bomb. It's a massive single-use nuke that slowly travels towards an enemy and upon impact explodes into smaller mini nukes that seek out nearby enemies. Great add clear attack for PvE. For Bottom Tree, it is less about the super, which now travels a bit faster, but instead of splitting on impact, it just makes a vortex. This is all about your grenade and melee working in conjunction with chaining kills to keep up the Devour buff. If you consume a grenade by holding it for a second or two, you get a 9-second timer for a buff called Devour. If you get any kills in that time frame, not only do you gain full health, but you also reset the timer and gain about 1/4 of your grenade energy back. If you save your grenade for the next wave of enemies, you can actually keep chaining this buff to keep yourself at full health throughout the entire encounter. Also, if you run out of grenades, no worries. Quick melee attack will give you Devour as well. But you won't gain melee ability energy on kills, so you should save this one for emergencies. This is best used in PvE for now, although some skilled players can make good use of it in PvP. And then we got Middle Tree for all my Forsaken peeps. This is Nova Warp. Rather than a single-use nuke, you are the nuke. You can just blink around now. This tree is almost exclusively used in PvP, but you can be very deadly when you use it for its grenade effect. If you hold the grenade button for a few seconds, you actually create a deadly handheld supernova, which one-hit kills players in PvP within about shotgun distance. So, if you're looking for some good PvE Warlock subclasses, I would recommend going with Top Tree Voidwalker for AoE nuke damage with Vortex Grenades and Healing Rift, Bottom Tree Voidwalker for sustain and solo play with a decent nuke. Use this with Vortex Grenades and Healing Rift as well. And if you have Forsaken, Middle Tree freaking Dawnblade. It's all you ever need. Oh, and Solar Grenades with Healing Rift. And sure, Middle Tree Stormcaller for single target nuke damage with Arc Bolt Grenade and Healing Rift. For PvP, Bottom Tree Dawnblade with Firebolt Grenades and Healing Rift. Bottom Tree Voidwalker for some cheeky Devour plays with Axion Bolt Grenades and Healing Rift. And Blink if you're feeling extra spicy. And if you have Forsaken, Middle Tree Voidwalker for handheld Supernova, and moderately reliable close range super with Axion Bolt grenades and Healing Rift. And that, my friends, is the longest explanation I have ever made about subclasses. All 26 minus the top tree solar warlock we skipped over. Don't get me wrong, it's not terrible. It's just, you know, for a beginner, not a great option without diving deeper into the nuances. So what did we learn? My top picks for PvE and PvP subclasses for new light players, emphasis on new light, meaning you don't have any of the middle trees, would be, if I had to pick one for each class, for PvE, Titan, Top Tree Sentinel, aka Bubble. For Hunter, Top Tree Night Stalker, aka Tether. For Warlock, Top Tree Voidwalker, aka Slova Bomb. You know, funny enough, when I made this list, I didn't expect all three of my choices to be Void. So yeah, I guess Void equals fun. For PvP, recommendations are, for Titan, Bottom Tree Striker. Sorry, this one doesn't have a cool nickname. Hunter, gonna go out on a limb here and just say try out Top Tree Gunslinger, aka Golden Gun. Yeah, I know they're both Golden Gun, but the PvP one is actually called Golden Gun or Goldie, and the bottom tree you will get used to calling it Celestial. You'll learn why at a later time. For Warlock, nothing better than good old bottom tree Dawnblade. And guys, that is it. 40 some odd minutes into this freaking video and we can start playing the game. I hope I didn't scare you off with this one. I honestly thought it was going to be much shorter, so I didn't get to talk to you about anything else yet, but hey, you can now figure out what character you want to play with some more clarity. The next video will be much shorter. I have a better plan for that one now, so I promise you don't have to worry. We will also be playing the game next time around, so you can catch up to your friends or just get moving and grooving on your own. If you stayed to watch this far, first of all, thank you. I don't expect to get many views here, but hey, I just want to help you guys out. So for helping me out, I'll give you a little teaser on what's coming next. On the next episode, we will be talking about key bindings for PC players and a little bit of stuff for console, and the first mission of the game. After that, we will be talking about the map and quest log, and if everything goes well there, next video after should be about character screen, weapons, and armor. Again, thanks for watching. If you ever have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I will always try to respond as long as I get a notification. If you enjoyed the video, a like is greatly appreciated, and if you want to see more from this series, feel free to hit the subscribe button. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Havoc out.